Welcome to Faith in Focus. I'm your host, Delman Coates, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Today I want to talk about the role of the church in the fight for civil rights. What many people fail to realize is that many of our churches were born in the crucible of the fight to advance social justice and equality here in the United States. Many of the freedoms that we enjoy today are because Christians connected their faith in God and preaching of the gospel to the struggle for freedom, justice, and equality for all of God's people. Unfortunately, the number of prominent churches and pastors, especially African American churches, that are engaged in the fight for social justice and activism is few. Many today have chosen prosperity preaching, a theology that measures one's faith in God by their material possessions, over prophetic preaching, a theology that relates the message of the cross to the fight for justice and equality in the world. And as a consequence, there is a tremendous chasm or void in the fight to advance civil rights and social justice today among many Christians. I'm very concerned about this state of affairs because in that void, others have attempted to step up and co-opt the message of the civil rights movement for their own agenda. Last month, for example, conservative commentator Glenn Beck and others convened a rally on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the anniversary of Dr. King's March on Washington and the I Have a Dream speech. When I think about others attempting to co-opt the message of civil rights, I think that it's an indictment on the church, and really the African American church in particular. Because so many churches have abandoned the fight for social justice and have chosen a theology of cash, cars, and clothes. There are people like Beck who are attempting to revise history and retell the story. Because we have abandoned that mantle, they are attempting to co-opt that mantle. In response to Beck's rally, the Reverend Al Sharpton, president of the National Action Network, convened and mobilized tens of thousands of people in Washington, D.C. for the Reclaim the Dream rally in March. Reverend Sharpton recently visited with us at Mount Enon Baptist Church in Clinton, Maryland, where I pastor. I sat down with him one-on-one to discuss the purpose of his Reclaim the Dream rally in March. Our Faith in Focus cameras also spoke to others who supported this effort. Reverend Sharpton, you've been working to put together the Reclaim the Dream march. Can you say more about why you felt it was necessary to put together this march?
Well, I first wanted, it was a two-part reason for the march. One is the celebration of where we've come from. 47 years ago when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Dorothy Height and others held the March on Washington, where Dr. King made this speech that is now historic, I Have a Dream. That led into concrete things. They dramatized the problem, and it led into the next year, the 64 Civil Rights Act, 65 Voting Rights Act. So when they went to Washington, they had to ride the back of the bus. They couldn't even use a public toilet. They were able to change that with the Civil Rights Act the next year. 65 Voting Rights Act led to where we have a black president when we came back in 2010. So the second reason for the march was, now what do we do about what we're facing today? Double black unemployment to white, high dropout rate, high incarceration rates. What are we going to do in terms of the challenges that we face? Just look in the Washington, D.C. area with the schools alone. Schools reopening this year, over 30 students per class. Well, those are critical issues. Education is the civil rights issue of our time. 47% of black men getting diplomas, meaning 53% dropping out. So I said it's time for us to reclaim our dream, the same energy they had 47 years ago to confronting where we are now. The good news is we have more to work with. We do have a black president. We do have 40 blacks in Congress. The bad news is tools don't matter if you don't use them and you're not focusing them on some deliverables, and that's the idea of mine.
We're getting ready to line the streets of Washington by the thousands because others marched. We have a different life. Somebody said, why are y'all marching? Why are y'all rallying? They call us troublemakers. But now the folks that used to criticize us for marching trying to have a march themselves.
This program is brought to you by Mount Enon Baptist Church, located in Clinton, Maryland, for people on the grow. Mount Enon Baptist Church is located at 9832 Piscataway Road in Clinton, Maryland.
Has the march been well received by people, blacks and whites, people from various backgrounds?
Well, I think that it has been generally well received. Certainly the right-wingers who have the march the same day, Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin, are not going to receive it well. But I'm not really focusing on them. I always think about those that paid the price for us. Imagine how difficult it was for them and the public opinion that was against them. So if you're in civil rights activism or any kind of activism like I am, you go in knowing there's going to be some controversy. You go in knowing that there's going to be as many people jeering as cheering. That's the nature of what you do. Your discipline and objective is to keep your eye on the prize and keep moving. I was told when I was a young activist that, you know, activism is like football. You go out there, half the crowd's jeering, half the crowd's cheering. Your job is to get the ball across the goal line. So I don't listen to the cheers or the jeers. I stay focused on the goal line.
I'm here today with the Reverend Dr. Frederick Haynes, pastor of the Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas. Dr. Haynes, can you tell us why you're here today as a part of the Reclaim the Dream rally and why you feel it's important for people of faith to be involved in social justice?
Well, two reasons. Number one, as wonderful as the dream was articulated 47 years ago, and as far as we have come, for too many, the dream is an elusive nightmare. You have 40 million who are, beneath the poverty level. You have wars that are still going on, and we have a man of peace whose dream we honor today. You have a Jim Crow system in effect in terms of the criminal justice system, to quote Michelle Alexander. Our schools are factories of failure, especially for African-American children and especially for African-American boys. So for them, when we talk dream, they see nightmare. And so with that being the case, we had to be here. Number two, Martin King, who we celebrate today, man of faith. When you heard him speak, you also heard him preach. And so we are here today recognizing that Martin King was a man of faith, and faith without works is dead. Worship without social justice is dead. We must let justice roll down as waters.
You alluded to others who may be attempting to co-opt Dr. King's anniversary for their own agenda. What would you say is the state of race relations today?
I think, Reverend Coates, there's been a lot of progress. The country did elect a black man president, and that should not be discounted. People have grown, but I don't think we're anywhere near where we need to be. I think to overstate the case is just as wrong as to understate it. So those that say, oh, nothing has changed are wrong. A lot changed. But those that say we're in a post-racial era are just as wrong. All you have to look at is Shirley Sherrod case or the Dr. Laura Inward case or Rush Lombard. Every month you have these racial flare-ups to remind us we're not there yet. It's almost like flying and you clear some turbulence in the clouds and you can see the ground. But that's not the time to get off the plane. You haven't arrived at the gate yet. You just got through a storm. We've gotten through some vicious racial turbulence in our history, but we still have not got to the gate of racial equality. And there is always the confusion between racial equality and racial harmony. People say, well, can't we get along? Well, that's social behavior, but that's not social equity. We will never be there until every black child and Latino child born has the same opportunity and same equal protection under the law of every white child. Not that we just like each other better, but that we structurally have an equal and even society. And we're nowhere near that.
I'm here today with Bishop Rudolph McKissick Jr., pastor of the Bethel Institutional Baptist Church in Jacksonville, Florida. Bishop McKissick, tell us why you're here today and why you feel it's important as a pastor that people of faith support this kind of effort.
I think it's very important because as pastors, we should not lose the prophetic mantle that Dr. King had. I think so much of what we hear now is individualism and individualistic kind of preaching, and we've lost the sense of community, responsibility. We've lost the sense of preaching for the oppressed and the downtrodden, and because it's history. And I think one of the things that we as pastors need to do is keep our history alive so that our young people will respect it, know it, honor it, and try to live in it. And as a pastor, to make sure I stay within the framework and mindset of being prophetic in all my preaching, so that I make sure that the oppressed know that none of us are free until all of us are free.
Mount Enon Baptist Church, for people on the grow. For more information, log on to www.mountenon.org.
We had a conversation earlier about the historic role that the black church has played in advancing the cause of civil rights. Are black churches as involved today as they were in the past? And if not, how can black churches and black pastors, what is it going to take to get more black churches, more black Christians involved in the cause of social activism?
Well, I think that black churches, by and large, are not involved. Having said that, I don't think even in the height of the 60s, before my time, they all were involved. Let's not forget that Martin Luther King had to leave his denomination. So I think we give the illusion that black churches in the 60s and 50s were all involved. They were not. But they were more involved. And the younger, more educated black clergymen were activists. And you don't see that today. I think that what will to make them become more involved is the demands of the times is going to do that. Their members in a recession will not tolerate some a prosperity gospel. It don't work. That worked when the country was doing well. But you can't preach about a Lexus now and I don't have a job, or that you have 30,000 people going for 2,000 Section 8 homes in Atlanta. So I think the membership is going to do the community. Otherwise, you become irrelevant, and your ministry can't grow if it's not serving the needs of people. And I think that's going to be the challenge of clergymen in the black church in your generation and the generation behind you. I tell young ministers, I spoke to a group of young ministers in Dallas not long ago, and I say that you are the spiritual shepherds of this generation, but you're not the leaders of this generation. And one of them said, well, why would you say that? I said, well, when Gina happened, those kids were 17. They called me, they didn't call you. When Sean Bell happened, that woman whose husband-to-be was killed was 22, she didn't call you. You got to ask yourself, if your members get in trouble, they think of calling somebody like me and not you. What does that say about you as a pastor?
We are here today at the Reclaim the Dream rally with Dr. David Jefferson, pastor of the Metropolitan Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey. Dr. Jefferson, what do you think it's going to take to get more pastors and to get more churches involved in social activism today versus, prosperity? How can we get more churches involved in social activism?
I really do believe that the times that we're in is going to drive a necessity for us to return to our real purpose. I believe that, quote, the series of events that are happening in our country with the lack of affordable health care, with individuals not having the appropriate housing to live in, with our young people not having access and not being able to get a quality education. I really believe that those types of things are going to create a necessity that will therefore cause our pastors and our churches to revisit the whole notion of really what our agenda is and what our purpose is. And so I think even this right here today can't be an activity, can't be an event nor an episode. This right here must be the continuation of something that we all go back to our community. And it's more than just about reclaiming Dr. King's dream. It's about reclaiming our community, Delman. It's about reclaiming our families and our homes. And I think because of that, we'll get engaged.
You've had recently this year some exchange with other black leaders around the black agenda. What is the black agenda that you're trying to raise in the march that you're trying to advance? What are the issues, the 3 to 5 issues that black people need to be fighting to advance?
We must be focused on our stake in the economy, both jobs and entrepreneurship, contracts, business development on our own, as well as jobs, because we will never have enough businesses, no community does, to employ all their people. So economics is one, education is another. The inequity in education, and you know for the last 3 or 4 years I've worked hard on that, worked very closely with Secretary Duncan and President Obama on that. And we must deal with that. We must deal with education second. We must deal with the criminal justice system, whether it is racial profiling by police, whether it's the high incarceration rate, whether it's the courts. That's 3. 4th, I think we've got to deal with the reality of our cultural influences, and that is self-infused. I think we have got to take on this culture of degradation, this culture of really trying to devalue our lives, that we allow the movie and recording industry to impose upon us, to where our kids think being black is to be a thug and a gangster. I think we've got to deal with that. I think that it has become almost a crippling effect on a lot of our young people. And healthcare. The disparity in healthcare in our community has caused us to be #1 in 9 of the 10 worst diseases in the country. The overall, though, is fighting for equality. These are 5 areas, but the real bridge is we're still not equal. So we are free, but we're not equal. We're free, but we're not equal. We can go to any hotel, but we can check in, but we can't check out because we don't get equal money. We can go to any restaurant, but can we pay for the food? So the battle for this generation is equality.
Mount Enon Baptist Church is located at 9832 Piscataway Road in Clinton, Maryland.
This is the Reverend Walter Fauntroy, and you are watching Faith in Focus.
I'm here today with Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, co-facilitator of the National African American Clergy organization. Dr. Williams Skinner, can you tell us why you're here today and why you feel it's important for people of faith to be involved in matters of social justice?
Dr. King's commitment to social justice and racial equality was rooted in the Word of God. It was rooted in the belief in a God who made everyone equal. And he carried that out in the social justice tradition, but it started with the Word of God. It started with a God who was for all people of all races, of all backgrounds. As a woman of faith, I have to be here to affirm that dream.
You mentioned the self-inflicted aspect of our struggle.
Right.
That's a part of your message that I don't think people really are hearing much about when they think about, Reverend Al Sharpton. A part of your message is to challenge African Americans to pick themselves up.
No, that has been a central part of my message, and a lot of the media don't play that part because that's not ratings. Black against white confrontation, police, that's ratings. But every time I speak in churches, including your beautiful church, Mount Enon, that's what I talk about. Because I'm not fighting for the right for us to be thugs. I'm not fighting for the right for us to be hoodlums. I'm fighting for the right for us to be equal and excel. In order to do that, you've got to be prepared. Doesn't matter how many doors we open if you can't walk through the door because you're high on drugs. And I think that we've got to have the internal challenge in our community on our own behavior while we deal with the external challenge of those that would keep us down. And I think we need to dramatize that more. I remember when you had marches on that. We marched on record companies in New York. We've got to keep dramatizing that. And some of that is going to make some of us uncomfortable because some of us, frankly, are the merchants of this kind of self-inflicted kind of matrix that's killing our community.
You mentioned your work with Secretary Duncan and the Obama administration. What grade would you give President Obama? How do you think he's doing? He has his poll numbers are falling. You know, what do you think?
I mean, I would give him high grades. I would probably give him an A. Why? First of all, how do you measure any president? How do you measure anybody? You measure from where they start to where they go. If I was going to give you a height, I'd start from the ground to the crown. He came in when we were on the brink of a depression. He literally saved the country from a brink of a depression. And he was able to put through first health care bill we've seen in generations, financial services bill, and did keep his word in terms of bringing the walk back out of Iraq. I disagree with Afghanistan. But so he has been a productive president, kept his word against great odds. Now, has he solved all the problems? No. Has he done a lot of things that we would like to see done? No, not yet. But when you look at the fact that he comes after 8 years of Reagan, 4 years of Bush Sr., 8 years of Clinton playing a modified conservative, kind of moderate Democrat, then another 8 years of Bush. So now you got 12 Bush-Reagan, another 8, which gives you 20, and then 28 years if you bring Clinton's moderation. In 18 months, we expect him to undo 28 years is insane to me. And part of my discussions, as you raised with other black leaders who've been on him hard, is what are you really attacking? Is it that he didn't come to your fish fry, or that you are envious? Are you attacking him based on policy?
Stay tuned for more with Delman Coates. Next week on Faith in Focus.
And you know, the other day, somebody asked me how I felt about Glenn Beck being on the mall. I said, that's okay. Glenn Beck can be on the mall. That's his right. But the thing about it, we used to be on the mall. We had the mall. And when we had the mall, they were in the White House. But now they got the mall. Y'all not with me here today. Come on, don't we serve a good God? A God who can do anything, a God who can open up any door. Have I got a witness here? Go on Glenn Beck, go on Sarah Palin, go on Rush Limbaugh. You can have them all because we got the White House. Slap high five with your neighbor and say, neighbor, it's okay because we got the White House.
Reverend Sharpton, in closing, much has been made recently about the reinvention of Reverend Sharpton. We saw the recent Newsweek article. This program goes out all across the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. What would you know? What would you want people to know mostly about you that they do not know?
Well, I think, you know, it always amuses me when they talk about reinvention or the new Al Sharpton. It's really just the same Al Sharpton maturing that they may have miscast. So rather than the media saying maybe we had it wrong, they act like I changed rather than they changed their view. I'm still marching. I'm still raising the issues that I always raise. Now, I may do it more maturely. That's the difference between being 25 and 55. I mean, I hope anybody matures as they grow. What I would want people to know, though, is the core of everything I have done in my life is my religious conviction. I was a boy preacher, started preaching before I did anything else. I will always be first committed to my ministry. If I had 1 hour to live, I would tell God that I would like to get a pulpit for 50 of those minutes and preach my way on out of here. That's my first love and my first call.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton, for being on Faith
Thank
in
you.
Focus. Thank you.
I remember I was running for president in 2004. We were debating one night in Detroit. And we come off the stage that night, Coates, and a reporter said to me, Reverend Al, I said, yes, sir. He said, you did real good. I said, thank you. He said, in fact, I think you won the debate. I said, thank you. He said, you should be proud of yourself being up there. I stopped. I said, why you say that? He said, well, you up there debating governors and senators, and they come from 2 and 3 generations of prestige and wealth, and you didn't come from that, and you held your own. You should be proud of yourself. I told him, no, they ought to be proud to be up there with me. He looked kind of perplexed, said, what you mean by that? I said, well, they were born on third base and think they hit a triple. I wasn't even born in the stadium. I had to work my way through the parking lot and come down the bleachers and work my way through the stand and then hit a triple. But we all on the same stage now. And if they had to take what I took, they might not have made it. So I must be stronger than them. And I must have more power than them, because I got where they are and I started way back. I told the president, Coach, I like his book, The Audacity of Hope. But I told him hope is all right. Hope is good. I like hope, and hope is something we all must have. But ultimately, hope is a feeling. Hope is tomorrow will be a better day. Hope is I hope my luck change. Hope is I hope my ship come in. I hope things straighten out. Hope is all right. But there's a point where hope runs out. But I got a second gear after hope called faith. In fact, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. Faith is when your friends walk out, when your loved ones lie on you, when your family turn their back, but you say, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me now. We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word, because he never, I don't care how hard the test is, he never failed me yet.
I hope you've enjoyed today's broadcast. While much progress has been made in America, there is much more work to be done to guarantee equal protection under the law, to reduce social and economic disparities, and to expand opportunity. And what we need today are more churches, more faith leaders, and more people of faith who are committed to relating the good news of Jesus Christ to the social ills that we see in the world today. I want to invite you to worship with us at Mount Enon Baptist Church in Clinton, Maryland for any of our Sunday morning worship experiences. Please visit our website for more information about our ministry, for directions, prayer requests, or to make a contribution. Thanks again for tuning in to Faith in Focus. And join us next week for another spiritually relevant, socially informative broadcast. Be blessed and go in peace.